Turning back down to I-Team 8, the murder of 2 police officers this year, putting the death penalty in the spotlight.
A state study shows fewer and fewer death penalty cases filed in Indiana. Less than 20% of those ever go to trial. I-Team 8's Richard Essex found one stuck in the system for more than 2 decades.
On September 21st of 1999, police found the bodies of 2 people stuffed into a freezer in the garage of this house on the near west side of Indianapolis. Within days, police had arrested a suspect, and the suspect freely admitted what he had done. The prosecutor had planned to seek the death penalty, but this case is nowhere near going to trial.
Or anything, there will be no appeals or anything. I'm going to plead guilty, and if they want to execute me, they can. And if not, I mean, there's no way I'm going to spend 20 years in a place like this. I mean, if they don't do it, I mean, I'll just either kill myself or...
That was 23 years ago, and John Keith Adams is still in custody. He has spent most of the past 2 decades at the Logansport State Hospital. Adams has yet to face a jury for the crimes he openly admitted to committing. The murders of his wife Robin and his infant son John after their bodies were found in a freezer.
Robin's death was instantaneous and quick. She didn't even know. I mean, she was asleep. She didn't even know what hit her. Little John, I mean, I didn't want his death to be as prolonged as it was.
The victims were discovered by 2 Marion County Sheriff's detectives, Doug Scheffel and Chris Hefner. Both men are retired. Hefner has asked that we blur his face for his own safety. In 1999, the 2 detectives were investigating Adams for an armed robbery of 2 Pizza Huts here in Indianapolis. A tip had led them to Adams' house. On their first visit, they knocked on the door. Adams didn't answer, so they got a search warrant, and they came back later on in the week.
Went in looking for evidence for the robberies, and Hefner went out to the garage, and Hefner was a narcotics detective, and he had a nose for narcotics, and called me out. I was still in the house. He called me out to the garage. He goes, "Hey, you got to come and look at this."
I walked over to the freezer and lifted that lid, and the initial thing that I remember seeing was blood on the interior of the lid, and it didn't click yet.
And he took me over to a freezer, and that's where we located the bodies.
That child was put in that freezer alive.
As it turns out, Adams had been at the house when the detectives first came there. He told police later on that he was hiding in the living room and was prepared to shoot if they came inside. Adams must have known police were on to him. Before the detectives returned with a warrant, Adams took off.
He fled and went to Missouri, and we entered his vehicle information. After locating the bodies and everything, we entered his vehicle into the NCIC system as a person of interest in a homicide case, and a police officer in Missouri located him asleep in the car.
Detective Scheffel went to Missouri to interview Adams. He said that Adams was very matter-of-fact about the murders and didn't show any remorse.
It was just like you and I talking. And, and I never got any real indications of like mental illness, other than the fact you would think it would take somebody mentally ill to do something like that, but never said I heard voices in my head telling me to do this or anything of that nature.
You think was he at the time competent to stand trial?
I was surprised that he was found mentally incompetent.
Adams never denied killing his wife and son. The Marion County prosecutor at the time, Scott Newman, said that he would seek the death penalty against Adams.
First, we have a victim who's a child under the age of 12. Second, we have multiple murder. Third, we have what I view as the torture killing of the infant victim.
The case seemed open and shut, but there's a hitch. Adams planned to represent himself, in spite of concerns if he was competent to even stand trial, let alone represent himself in a death penalty case. Much to Adams' disapproval, he was assigned a public defender. In 2001, the court ruled him incompetent to stand trial.
I think it's unusual unless someone's adjudicated incompetent. And what I did find unusual was that basically his public defenders keep continuing the competency hearing. 23
years Adams has been waiting for his trial. 23 years is the longest that we can find anyone has waited for justice.
That wife and child, they deserve justice, their families. deserve justice.
Over the years, the court has scheduled dozens of competency hearings. He has been through several psychiatric evaluations. Adams has written dozens of letters to the judge asking for new counsel and continues to insist on representing himself. But the judge has not ruled in his favor. Every year, he and his court-appointed lawyers are required to come to court for a competency update.
And the tricky thing is, it appears that his very pleas for the competency hearing are why he's incompetent. In other words, he wants to become competent so he can represent himself and essentially give himself the death penalty.
There's a status hearing for this case coming up on December 1st at 10 o'clock in Marion County Superior Court. We will be there and we'll let you know if the judge decides it's time for Adams to stand trial after more than 2 decades. In Indianapolis, Richard Essex, Wish TV, iTeam 8.